Welcome to AI Champions. I'm your host, Chris Budihas, and joining me here in the studio is Cole Faust. Cole, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
No, it's good to see you as always. More importantly, from Dublin, Ireland, we have Lee Bristow with Dawn Horizon and Risk Copilot. Lee, how are you?
How's it, Chris? How's it, Cole? Good to be here, and thank you very much for having me on.
No, thanks for taking the time. AI is hot. Everybody wants some, but they don't know what it really does and how it works, and they don't know, all the different companies that are out there to help them. So can you talk a little bit about what do your companies do in this AI space?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So Dawn Horizon and Risk Copilot basically look to support organizations address the AI ethics, transparency challenges that are out there, right? And very much the safety concerns as well. So right now, a lot of the conversation is around the theory of safety. We like to take the concept of that theory and bring it into practice. And so we build bridges between that theory and practice, utilizing frameworks like 42001, which is an ISO standard, which has recently been released by ISO.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
Wow.
So you do you mess with jailbreaking or anything, researching how to parameterize that, or sorry if I'm geeking out a little bit too much, but I'm curious to see what you guys do with any of that.
Yeah, Cole. So we're actually very much more focused at the business layer. So, and the reason why I say that is right now there are a lot of CTOs and CIOs that are being charged with implementing AI. Right now, there was a recent study from IBM where it's roughly about 80% of executives are being asked to implement AI and pretty much take off the handbrakes and go full innovation. But the challenge with that is that there isn't a lot of ROI coming back. So just less than 40% in a European context is actually qualified as a return on investment for any AI project. And that's pretty much because there's very little governance around it. So leadership is not putting in place the required KPIs around what are your AI objectives, how are you doing it, AI training for leadership to identify what the opportunities are, what the risks are, how they're going, how their AI is actually being implemented, what is the architecture around it, what are the safety mechanisms around it. But again, it's very much at the business layer. I don't really geek out too much around the actual underlying tech too much. I'm interested at the architecture, and I'm interested in terms of how businesses are actually implementing that business layer. What you're referring to there, it would be a control set in terms of, again, just as an example, if your output is fading in terms of quality, why? What is the data input around it? What are the data governances around it? Is there any challenges around the way in which when you're adding or relearning or retraining your model, or if you kind of adding any kind of additional parameters in the way that you're grounding your LLM inside the organization or inside the organization's knowledge? That is typically where you would want to have, right, let's actually interject from a controls perspective. We're seeing our KPIs are not being met. What are we doing at an underlying tech level? Let's bring that back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Man, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, we're talking culture. We're talking organizational design. We're talking the design underneath the organization with the backbone of the IT space, the policies. I mean, there's so much to unpack there, which is awesome. And I think this is a conversation that we gotta continue to have as a community. It's funny, Lee, as you know, America, we're kind of going through, and I've read in a series of books here recently over the last year is, I guess for America, probably the world, do you overregulate it or underregulate it? If you overregulate it, then you can't meet the full maximum potential of AI. And if you underregulate it, then you have people using it in the ways that they shouldn't be using it. But a company like you comes in there, gives them a holistic look and helps them kind of figure out that architecture, design. Like you mentioned, the KPIs. A friend of mine told me one of the biggest challenges, not the biggest challenge, but a challenge is C-suite leadership doesn't even know what AI is. They can barely spell it, so they can't give really good guidance on how the business should run and implement these things. So for Lee, what kind of businesses should be calling you? Is there specific types of businesses that should be seeking your services, or are you open for any various markets?
I'm open for various markets. My background, as I mentioned, is very much around risk and compliance and governance and information security. That's kind of where I'm grounded. So I've worked across a lot of industries, but financial services, insurance, and tech has always been kind of my happy place and home. So it would be very easy for us to kind of slot in the AI governance services into those particular industries.
Yeah.
But you touched on a number of areas that I think are super important, which is around like the culture of the organization. Are they taking an AI safety first principle? Do they have any kind of AI policies in place? Is there any kind of thought process around data governance? And you also touched on some of the stuff around deregulation and over-regulation. So Europe is kind of pushing for more regulation. Even that being said, very recently they are starting to roll back on some of the kind of more aggressive regulation. But in the US, it's being cut. So what I think is going to potentially happen is that industry is going to go, hang on a second, if no one is actually understanding what needs to happen, we need to actually start governing ourselves. We need to actually adopt standards. And this actually happened with information security. So things like 27001 was actually adopted, NIST was adopted, and then SOC 2 is regulation. But the idea is the industry decided, hang on a second, we can't just accept any piece of technology from any third party. We need to actually understand that those businesses actually take security seriously. Because if I'm going to be installing their solutions in my environment, I want to know that they actually take security seriously. And I think that is going to be the same kind of idea where you almost want a badge of honor to say, we actually take AI safety, AI transparency seriously. And then they understand that from the top down, from a leadership perspective, they've actually understood what risks are in place, what opportunities there are. They've done impact assessments against their AI tool sets that they're implementing, that they understand how they're going to be used, what are the risks if they're used in a slightly different way. And then, of course, underneath that, in terms of the entire life cycle. So, AI is not like reactive AI systems, where once the algorithm is in, it kind of stays. Large language models are iterative and continue to learn and adapt and change. And therefore, you need to consistently and continuously actually monitor the way they're operating inside your customer's environment, especially if your customer is serving other customers below that. And if you're inside their core in terms of what they deliver around their own values, that is going to create an ecosystem. Well, I'm hoping it's going to create an ecosystem of like-minded businesses that are going, hang on a second, we need to make sure that we're actually all aligning to the same set of criteria from a business perspective. Yeah. So regulation, no regulation, let's adopt a standard. So our business essentially helps organizations have those conversations internally, helps the conversation further by taking structured clauses and controls and helping them implement them. So that's really around Dawn Horizon. And then Risk Copilot, it is still under development, but that will then be there for actually supporting that, both from a compliance perspective, and as the EU AI Act starts to roll out, helping US-based businesses and European-based businesses comply with the EU AI Act to its full extent.
Well, Lee, I would tell you to bottle that up and sell it. And I expect to see your first book or your book being sold here in the next year. That is, there's a lot you said there that needs to be unpacked. Oh, there you go, right there. All right. Nice. So we're going to make sure we get the link to your book, and then also the links for both Dawn Horizon and Risk Copilot. We'll put in our show notes, and we'll publish this out with this interview. And then I'll get with you offline for a larger podcast opportunity in the future. We can unpack this in maybe a 20 to 30 minute segment. So thanks a lot, Lee, for coming on. This is awesome.
Only a pleasure, Chris. Only a pleasure. And really great to chat with you, Cole.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Hey, folks, if you like what you heard, get in the conversation. Check out Lee, check out myself, check out Cole on LinkedIn. We like to continue this conversation on all things AI. It's huge, right? It's like you can either ride the wave or you can be buried by the wave. Preferably, I'd rather ride the wave into success, and AI is going to be one of many things that have a gigantic impact on our society. So we'll see our next AI champions. Live with gratitude.